Assalamu alaikum everyone. We're just going live. Just waiting for Habib to join the live, inshallah. So the topic of our live today is building back trust after betrayal. It's going to be a really interesting one, so stick around. Just waiting on Habib, and if you lot have any questions during the live, then feel free to pop them at the bottom. I will be saving it, so if you can't stay the whole way, then you will be able to watch the replays after, inshallah. Just give everyone a second.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Do apologies for the delay. How are you?
No worries, no worries. I was trying to keep everyone entertained. I don't think I was doing a very good job. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. How is the sound on your side?
Perfect, alhamdulillah.
Good.
I've got a really exciting unboxing to do whilst we're on live. I thought we'd get that done first.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. You've got a what?
An unboxing to do.
Oh, right, okay. Amazon, okay.
Let's see what it is. I've been excited to do this. Let's hope it's the right thing first.
You're leaving us in suspense. What's oh, right, oh. Oh, wow, okay, I wasn't expecting that.
It's just come through the post on Friday. I've been dying to open it, but look what I've got, guys. I'll let you introduce yourself so that everyone understands what this is, the gem that I've got in my hand.
Okay. All right. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, all to everyone. My name is Habib Akande. I'm a British-born Nigerian writer, sex educator, and historian. I've also written 7 books. No, is it 6 books?
You got 7 in your bio.
7 books. Yeah. So that was my latest book, which came out a couple of months ago. So, yeah, so one of the books is A Taste of Honey, Sexuality and Erotology in Islam. And my latest book, which Sister Naeema just showed, is called Women of Desire, A Guide to Passionate Love and Sexual Compatibility. So that came out a few months ago. And I've also authored Kunyasa, The Secret to Female Pleasure, which basically is a book which looks at an ancient African tradition from Rwanda, which helps women experience multiple orgasms and female ejaculation in heterosexual encounters. So yeah, that's a little bit of background. But by way of profession, I'm a chartered accountant, so writing books is just something I do on the side. And I also do some webinars, mainly geared or concentrated towards men, to help them understand female sexuality and help them to ensure that their wives are satisfied in the bedroom. So that's kind of a little bit about me, and I'm looking forward to having this discussion. Normally, to be fair, if I'm honest with you, I normally like to talk about, female pleasure and you could say maybe a bit light-hearted subject, so to speak, or more pleasure orientated, whereas I think this topic is quite heavy. So
I don't know how I feel about this topic. I feel a bit, I'll be honest, I'm feeling a little bit nervous. I feel like it is a very heavy topic, but it's needed.
It is. Yeah.
I just I attended your recent webinar, which was amazing, very insightful. And I loved the insights you gave on female pleasure and the psychology of pleasure and everything. But I'm excited for this one because I feel like women are struggling. As much as we can talk about the pleasure, the betrayal, the cheating, finding out that husbands are doing things behind their back is breaking women apart. And I feel like this is much needed. So I'm happy to have you here today to be discussing this. And so everyone can hear your insights on it.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm thankful for you inviting me. And yeah, let's see what we can do, because I'll be honest, like my approach is because I think we have enough men speaking about what women should and shouldn't do. So that's why I don't really like to talk kind of like directly to women, so to speak. So even though my message does involve women, I'm kind of generally direct my message to men, but then obviously with understanding, obviously a lot of women are going to listen just because, like I said, I think we've got enough men in our communities kind of telling women what they should and shouldn't do. So it's not really a case of me really, I would say, talking to women. It's either me providing women information that they might not be aware of, especially their rights from a religious perspective in Islam in terms of like sexual pleasure and things like that. But in terms of telling them what to do, especially when we're talking about issues like divorce, betrayal, cheating and stuff, I think that's something which obviously women should be empowered themselves to make those decisions what's best for her. But at the same time, I think it's also important that, because I'm noticing a shift where the first piece of advice that a lot of women receive who may be struggling with a partner who's maybe not as attentive or maybe maybe doing some things that he shouldn't be doing is leave, get rid of him. And I don't think that's always necessarily the best answer, because I think in a lot of cases, some of these issues can be resolved between them. And again, especially when we're talking about this topic, and I like the way you framed it about building trust after betrayal, whether the man has cheated or, watched porn or what have you. We're looking at the topic, or we're discussing it, and correct me if I've misunderstood this, in a case where, yes, there has been some betrayal, whether some infidelity, but the woman is looking to reconcile, but she's finding it difficult to build trust. In that situation, we're talking about someone who is trying to rebuild their marriage or rebuild their relationship. We're not speaking about someone who maybe they found out their husband is cheated and they want to leave. That's different. Because then obviously that's about how do you go about divorce proceedings and stuff, which is not my remit. But we're looking at a case where a woman has found out, whether it's come to like whether he's admitted it or she's found it herself somewhat, or someone's told her that maybe the husband's been unfaithful, or he's done certain things that maybe she wasn't aware of, and now obviously the trust is broken. So obviously I'm sure it's a very painful experience in the case. How can she rebuild trust? And I'll use the word rebuild rather than build, because trust was there, it's now been broken. How do you rebuild it? Is it possible to build that trust again? I believe it is. Is it possible to heal? I believe it is, and we can talk about some strategies that some women have achieved to overcome infidelity. But I think it's important that these type of conversations are held, because it's normally one or the other. He's cheated or he's been watching porn, get rid of him. And there's not really much of a space for women who they're in this situation, they are struggling, but they want to find a ways where they can kind of heal again. So, so that's why I didn't mind having this conversation. If you kind of framed it just about cheating and then what should a woman do, I would have declined your offer, if I'm honest with you, because I'm not there to kind of tell women what they should do. But if it's the case of where she's made the decision, she wants to stay, or she wants to see if she can reconcile or build trust again, then what strategies or how can she kind of overcome this issue, or how can they both overcome this issue? Then by all means, I'm more than happy to kind of share my thoughts and insights.
Yeah, and I that's what you said was absolutely right. Like, a lot of women are just told that walk away. If you ask your girlfriends, okay, I just found out my husband's cheating on me, they'll be like, walk away, you deserve better. Now that whole idea of just walk away, you deserve so much better, is damaging so many families. And in actual fact, what you said, you can build trust after these things have happened, after you've found out that your husband has betrayed you. You can. If you want to, then you absolutely can. If you don't want to, then that's absolutely your decision as well. If you asked me a couple of years ago, I would have told any woman that, no, walk away, you deserve better. But I think I was so wrong myself, because I have seen women who have come out of that and are now able to have happy relationships, fulfilling, satisfying relationships with their partner, and even have better relationships with their partner as well, because now they have opened up the can of worms, healed from the whole mess, rebuilt that trust, and are able to have open communication and actually go far in their marriages. So I'm really happy to be having this conversation. I've actually worked with a number of women who have their husbands were addicted to pornography, visiting prostitutes, and have come to me saying, I want to heal from this. So it's not an easy process. It's not but just understanding why he done it in the first place, I think, is a great place to start. Knowing that it was nothing to do with you. It was nothing to do with the fact that he didn't love you or you weren't appealing enough. It's a lot deeper than that, and it's more to do with him, his issues that he's facing. And I think understanding that is a huge part of healing from this as well.
I agree. So before answering that question, in terms of trying to understand why a man might have done, and I do agree with you that it's the man's problem and women should internalize what he's done. But just coming to what you mentioned, that you said a few years ago, you would have, your first advice would have been just leave him. And then you mentioned that it was, is it because, I'm just wondering, what was that change in you that you then maybe saw things more holistically? Was it because you heard the experience of other women who've overcome heartbreak, or like, what was it that triggered the change in you?
Honestly, I grew up.
Yeah.
I grew up. I've been married 8 years. I'd say I'm an ex-feminist. I was all like, women shouldn't have to put up with anything. They shouldn't have to deal with anything that a man dishes out. She shouldn't have to deal with that. She should just walk away. But the truth is, I believe that they can work through it. Men make mistakes, and so do women. And it's like, you hate the sin, not the sinner. So if you want to walk away and you know that that's something that you can't live with, then that's totally up to you. But if you feel like, there's still love there, you can still love a person even though they've cheated. There can still be feelings there. You've built everything together. And because you cheated, if you don't want to throw that away, then why should you? You can build trust back.
Yeah.
That's just my honest opinion. I was very naive. I grew up, and that's why I changed my belief on that.
No, I appreciate your honesty and transparency, and I think a lot of people wouldn't readily admit that, because there does seem to, and it can happen the other way with men as well. And interestingly enough, when we speak about, betrayal, like within in a relationship, a marriage, and healing from that, obviously we generally look at from the perspective of the woman, but then there are also instances where the woman has betrayed the man as well, but not really many people speak about that. And it's hard. I'm not going to say it's harder for a man to forgive a woman or whatever, but you do have even examples of that in our history and even in the Quran. So people forget, when you look at the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, his wife betrayed him. But his wife, the wife of Aziz betrayed him with Yusuf. Yeah. But what was the reaction of the husband to his wife? He said, ask her to seek forgiveness on Allah. And he took her back. Yeah. But even in that story, people kind of overlook that. So you do even have, how is it for, imagine again, especially for the men that are listening, you're a powerful, rich man, you've got the so-called, anything you want, so to speak, and then your wife is trying to seduce your slave, which obviously in those times is kind of even big of a, and a lot of men, they wouldn't be able to deal with that, yet he's still stuck with her. Yeah. Wow, when you put it like that, it's... Yeah, people forget. So we have examples in our history, even in the Quran itself, of betrayal. So people just think it's just one way. So it's where there's betrayal and there's people who try to seek reconciliation. So I just think that I don't want to use the word grow up, but actually I like it in the sense of maybe expand how we view things, how we look at love and desire, and it's not just this romanticized perfect relationship that unfortunately many of us have kind of come to believe. And if there's an issue or a struggle or a form of betrayal, that the relationship can't overcome that. And I think it's important that we normalize human failures, in the sense not to justify what people have done, but just to know that everyone is going through something, and many relationships go through things, and there are many people who've overcome that. But because unfortunately, I think especially in many Muslim spaces, and I understand the reasons why, there are not many examples of people who speak openly, honestly, of what they've gone through, which is understandable, because I do believe that people should generally kind of keep things within their relationship and not necessarily voice it to the world. People aren't aware of how many people are going through different things. I'm sure, obviously, with the work that you do, you've come across numerous, and you mentioned it earlier, relationships where, marriages where people have gone through like betrayal and have overcome it, and I've heard many cases as well. So again, my view is not as romanticized as maybe many other people's are, because you're seeing the realities of and I just don't buy into this perfect couple or relationship goals and I think that's probably as damaging as some of the advice, the knee-jerk reaction advice that some people give, just leave him, he's this, he's that, and people are going through their different struggles. Now, just coming back to, sorry, I went off on a tangent, but just coming back to what you mentioned about some women trying to understand, for example, with men, that's maybe, I'll use the word suffering from porn addiction or sex addiction, because it is a type of illness. And there does seem to be a lack of empathy with someone who's struggling in regards to their desires. It's this idea, and it is a trait. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm not absolving the person of blame or anything. I'm not saying, but there are people that are struggling. That's not to say that, you know, what they're doing is right and things like that. But it's important that, for example, whether it's the wife or the husband and the partner has this maybe porn addiction or sex addiction, that there's something that they're trying to overcome. Not thinking about yourself, because this is the issue that they have, not necessarily you. It's generally 9 times out of 10, it's something to do with your relationship.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to make this your problem, and then you're thinking, you know, the women that and I'm speaking in the context, obviously, of a man that's got you could say porn addiction or sex addiction, and then you're trying to maybe compare the women that he's looking at to yourself. It doesn't work. And especially a lot of men will tell women that we can, in many cases, compartmentalize and disconnect between maybe a woman that we may be lusting after and a woman that we love and desire. That's our wife. So it's not helpful in many cases, I would say, to want to know the ins and outs and the type of women that he's fantasizing over and why, because in many cases he might not necessarily be able to. And a lot of men are very good communicators and are not very articulate in terms of explaining themselves. And it's not to say, and the thing is, he may say something in a way that a woman naturally might just compare herself to the woman that he's looking at in porn. And that's not always the reflection that he wants, you know, the woman that he's seeing in porn, he's fantasizing over to be his wife, so to speak. And it is his problem. And I think women should first understand that, first and foremost, that you have been betrayed. It's not your fault. It's something that you can support him from a distance, or you can support him with him. But if it may be too difficult to support him, like, for example, going to some meetings, or whether, you know, there's like,
there's
I'm
support
sure
groups
people
out there. I
like,
work with the support groups to help men and women overcome porn and sex addictions.
Right.
And it's really important what you said, knowing that it's nothing to do with you, it's to do with something that he's struggling with on his own. Yes, you can support him with it. And if it's too difficult, because of course all the emotions are involved, then let him get support elsewhere. Encourage him to get support elsewhere. But if he doesn't, then that's also not your problem as well. Because, you know, we can't force anyone to go get support. If they are willing to overcome it, then yes, inshallah, you support him with that. But you can't blame yourself, and you can't be comparing yourself to the women, the person who he may be having an affair with, because that's just going to damage you further, and it can leave you in a very, very dark space, like I've seen with so many women myself.
And one thing I would say, especially, and I appreciate there may be obviously non-Muslims listening, or people that do not believe in God or anything, but the importance of faith, I think people should not underestimate that. And even when we look at the support groups, especially whether it's Alcoholics Anonymous, Sex Addicts Anonymous, that basically copied, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the 12 Steps program. So the 12-step program that the Sex Addicts Anonymous use, they base that off the Alcoholics Anonymous program. Yeah. And in that 12 Steps program, it's a self-help program, recovery program, to help anyone who's struggling with, you know, sex addiction or alcoholism. Central to that program is the importance of faith. And even when you read it, even from an Islamic perspective, it's very in line with our Quranic teachings in terms of you're relinquishing your power and knowing that you're submitting to a higher power, i.e. God, to try and help you overcome what you're going through. And many people speak about the importance of, you know, like these AA meetings and also the SAA meetings for sex addicts. And there's also another form of sex addicts, which, again, many people don't really talk about, which is love addiction or intimacy addiction that a lot of women suffer from. But that's love, and I'm using the word love intentionally, not lust, because, again, when we speak about lust, especially coming from a Western perspective, we look at the 7 deadly sins, lust being evil, lust being wrong. But when you speak about love is all good, but love can be a form of addiction, a dangerous addiction. Love isn't always good, because you can love something which is not healthy. Yeah. You know, so with the love addiction, and that falls into one of the different types of sex addiction. So you've got sex addiction, love addiction, and porn addiction. But all of them, they are a type of out of control feeling or behavior, whether it's attached to sex in terms of sexual activities, whether it's attached to love, or whether it's attached to porn. And these are things that people are managing with. But again, when it's coming from the perspective, like, we seem to have more empathy or sympathy for someone who's maybe love struck or is going through love, and they could be attached or getting into these unhealthy relationships with different people because they're addicted to these, and again, just say these partners that they're with. But when it comes to sex addicts, there's less appreciation or less empathy for people who are struggling in terms of sex addiction or like porn addiction. I just find it, and that's why I think even for a man, if he's going through that, and I've heard a number of men say they can't tell their wife. I find it more comfortable to maybe speak to like a friend that they trust, and not even a lot of men could even trust, could really open up with their friends in terms of if they're suffering. So, and again, I'm not saying all of this so people think I'm just siding with the man, and it's just to see the humanity in the person that is going through something. Now, in terms of, again, the woman, if she wants to understand where did this come from, again, it can come from, like, how did it develop? That's another topic altogether. But I'm more kind of solution orientated, and sometimes it's not really a case of necessarily understanding like the origins of where did this come from, but knowing first and foremost it's not you. It's nothing really to do with you. It's something that, and again, not all, but a number of men view sex and love and desire differently from how women view it. And I touched on this, in the last webinar, with the whole idea of the romanticized unconditional love, where love and desire exists at all times in the same entity. And this is the love that many people, especially in the Western world, we're pumped with. So that's why a lot of women, when they hear, this they hear the news of the husband is, cheated on them, or he's looking at porn, it's this idea that he doesn't love me anymore.
Yeah. I found that really, really interesting in your last webinar, actually, about how the Western world see it. That is like when you love someone, you lost them, and it's all in that one person. And that you can't find desire elsewhere. And then and that Western ideology that's been put inside us, if you were to see your partner cheating or betraying you, you're like, okay, that's it. It's over. He doesn't have anything for me anymore. There's no love there. There's no desire there anymore. So then they go and they try and make themselves more beautiful and do things to keep him attractive. And he's still cheating. And that's putting her in a really dark place. And I think this is the problem that a lot of women are having. They don't understand that their partner can still love them, and they can still have desires elsewhere, or still be addicted to pornography, or have that love addiction. Yeah. So when I mean understanding where it's coming from, not necessarily looking down, to see what, I don't know, childhood trauma that has led him to, I don't know, having this addiction, but understanding that it's not you, and understanding that he still loves you, and he can still find desire or love with another person, but that has nothing to do with you as a woman.
Yeah. And I think it's about understanding as adults. I'm not a therapist or anything, so I don't know much about, I understand the number of therapists look at childhood trauma and its impacts and things like that. But I'm just, again, as adults on a practical level, I always ask people, both men and women, to re-examine what they understand love to be, lust to be, desire to be. Because they're not, and even sex as well, because again, if you're dealing with someone, and again, it's not right or wrong, but has this concept or this ideology that love and lust is like one and the same, as in when you love someone, truly love someone, you desire them, you won't desire anyone else. That might be for you, which is fine. But but is that how your partner views love and desire and lust? The same way when we talk about love, the same when we talk about love languages, the wife might have a specific love language of words of affirmation, and the husband might have a different love language. Now, again, and that was the whole point of why Gary Chapman wrote that book, was it's all about how do you communicate love, because we communicate love differently, and even not necessarily men or women, but even as human beings. But if there's a level of understanding, a mutual understanding that, okay, this is what I understand love to be, but my partner understands love to be such and such, then something that you might be doing that for you might not be considered a deal breaker. For him it is. Like for men, respect is a big thing. So if, for example, the wife may be ridiculing him or saying something publicly about him, that might be a greater form of betrayal, or similar to like physical intimacy. There are some people who emotional intimacy is, they're more worried about if he had an affair, like is emotionally attached to another woman, as opposed to physical penetration. Excuse me for being a bit graphic, but it's just understanding that first, and that's why I think it's important that, and I think a lot of times we have men speaking amongst themselves and just whining and bitching and complaining about women, and the women speaking amongst themselves and whining and bitching and complaining about men. But we don't have many cases where, and I'm not talking about just men collectively and women collectively, but I think it's good if we can communicate, because we see the world differently, but even the couple.
Yeah.
So it's all women.
Women find out. Okay, there's been very, from all, I'm not saying from every case that I've ever seen, because just from the women that I've found, that I've spoken to, it's not that he's communicated with her that I've got this issue. She's found out. There's never been this communication there. No one ever talks about this. What's your idea of love? What's your idea of, well, what would be you betraying me? No one has these conversations.
Yeah.
It's always that she's found out. Now, I've heard women who have been torn apart just by seeing that her husband has given another woman attention. And I've seen another woman be torn apart by him knowing that he's had penetrative sex with another woman. So it's different. They're still torn apart. One might have been, well, from somebody else, someone may think that's less severe, but it's that emotional attachment that he's got to another woman that is breaking this woman apart. But how do we go about healing from this then? How do we go about, what would be the first step to having these conversations? Because I don't think many couples still would be willing to have these conversations.
Well, well, that's the thing. You have to. Again, we're looking at in the context of a couple, right? The world, outside world, cannot solve their problems. It's something that they need to be able to kind of deal with themselves. So if they're not willing to have this open and honest conversation between the two of them, first and foremost, and I think 8 times, if not 9 times out of 10, a lot of these issues can be resolved between the two of them. Not always you need to necessarily go to a counselor.
Yeah.
Or a therapist.
I
think a lot of time. I think because this idea, and again, it's pumped into people nowadays as if everything you need to go to a counselor, you need to go to a therapist. And I don't necessarily agree with that, because up until the 20th century, I'll be saying that because there wasn't therapists, like we know therapists, but people had issues and people resolved them. But what people don't have nowadays, which they had in the past, I think people were more. And I say effective communication rather than just communication, because if you're just talking, but you're not speaking in a way that the other person understands where you're coming from and they understand the pain that you've gone through, then they might not feel it's a big deal. So that's why I think the first step definitely has to be where the betrayed spouse, in this case, the woman, needs to communicate clearly. And don't be afraid to let her husband know how much she's been hurt and what he's done and why she feels the way she does. Because, again, if you're the man that's thinking, oh, sex doesn't mean anything or flirting doesn't mean anything, and I'm not actually doing anything because I may be just flirting, whatever, but she's really hurt by that, if he doesn't express that to him, he might be none the wiser and continue doing that. Do you understand what I'm getting at? So that's why I think it's important that first she doesn't feel ashamed to express her anger, because she's got a right to be angered. And as men, when we feel betrayed, we'll 9 times out of 10 we'll let the world know. We'll shout from the rooftops. So again, I think it's important that women empower themselves. As much as it's great we're talking about female empowerment collectively, if 99% of the population is empowered but you're not, it's not going to benefit you.
Yeah.
So there needs to be a level of selfishness that, okay, forget about everyone else. What do you want? And understand what your expectations are. So if, for example, we know the expectation, the goal is I want to build trust or rebuild trust within my relationship, but then there's a breakdown in communication. First, we need to then have that conversation. However difficult it may be, we first need to have that conversation between the two of us. Now, if you've not had that conversation, for however long you've been married, whatever, it might be difficult at first, but I still would do it, but then know that you're not going to find a solution overnight. It's a long road potentially to heal. And I would take solace in the fact that know that many people have gone through what you're going through. So you're not going through anything, although you may feel like you're the only person in the world that's going through this. And if you are going to consult with people, I would say consult with marriage-minded people, not people who's just going to say, you deserve happiness, he ain't SHIT, leave him, blah. No. There are some people
don't talk to me 3 years ago. Come talk to me now.
I'm just saying, again, if that's what you want, like you want to leave, then leave. But if you want someone to help you, you want to understand, okay, because obviously your mind is frazzled. You're trying to understand so many things. You think you've been living a lie. You feel you don't know your husband and this, that, and the other. It might be good to speak to other women who've gone through a similar experience. Because with a lot of things, when we're going through something, can feel like the worst thing in the world, but with time there is healing, and there are strategies which you can do to overcome this. So again, first and foremost, have open and honest conversations. Try and speak to marriage-minded people, especially maybe elders, that can kind of help you kind of overcome this and put things into perspective. Do not internalize this and think it's about you. It's his problem. And even I wouldn't necessarily advise. I know some women want to know like the details, like who, how many times, and I just don't think that helps.
I don't think that helps either. I think
I don't think it helps. So this idea that he needs to, I just, and even with men, I tell them like, and then what will happen is, you know, men will kind of try and minimize the impact. So we would just own up to what you found out. So yeah, it was just this one time, and that's generally not the case. You know, it was just that one time that she, okay, because it was just a mistake. It wasn't a mistake, and I don't buy that. It's not a mistake. He's done wrong. Yes, he's maybe been caught, and that's why he's admitting it. But it wasn't like a mistake.
What about when it's a mistake? Well, it's never a mistake. I don't believe you don't have sex with someone by mistake.
Yeah, you don't fall into that.
You didn't fall into that hole. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But what about when it happens? Then it's like it happens, and then it happens again, and then you're building trust, and then it happens again. It's sticky.
Okay. So if it's happening again and again, and is this where he has like apologized and said he's not going to do it again, and then he's done it again? Or is this just where he's a repeat offender, but he hasn't said that he's going to stop doing it? Which one is it? Which one are we dealing with?
He wants to stop doing it, but it's the addiction. It's the love or the addiction, and then he does it again. And you're just like, well, how am I meant to be building trust with a person that I cannot trust because he keeps breaking my trust?
Okay, well, it's his problem, so he needs more help then. Because again, it's not if you said in a case where he's just a repeat offender and he's showing no remorse or no guilt to doing what he's doing, then that's, you know, that's one thing. Maybe it might be a case of go your separate ways, unless you want to tolerate that. If it's a case of where he's a repeat offender and he's saying it's because like he's struggling with it, then he might need some more help. The same way if and I'm not comparing the two, well, I am actually, like with different forms of drug addiction. And again, some people, and I would say this, because you don't have this struggle, don't minimize someone else's struggle.
Yeah,
just because you don't have this, and I think that's very important, because there are some, you know, when I speak to some women, they'll be like, oh, but I see a lot of attractive men, but I don't feel the urge to, you know, do this and do that like he does. Maybe you've got stronger willpower. Maybe you don't even have that desire that he's got. Do you understand? So I think it's important to understand, okay, what and a lot of that strength that you've got, know that you've been blessed with that strength. It's not because you're just a perfect person or wonderful person.
Allah's giving you that strength.
Allah, exactly. That's what Allah's giving you. You've been blessed with that. And I think, especially, again, coming from a faith perspective, when you're reading the stories of the past, both men and women that are struggling with different things, there was a level of recognizing their humanity and recognizing that people that are blessed to not deal with certain things is because they were blessed from above. Not that you're just a great person, a wonderful person.
You know, so that's why you're not any better because you're struggling.
Yeah, no, right. So again,
it's good what you said about you know, when you are recovering from this, if you are a man or a woman who's going through this kind of addiction, love addiction, or they're cheating, and even though they want to stop, they can't stop. It's very important to recognize it's Allah that will give you the strength to overcome this.
Yeah.
So handing over that to Allah, saying, Allah, you help me, because willpower alone won't get you anywhere. Willpower alone will get you so far. When you let go of that control, say, Allah, you're in control. You give me that strength to stop this. That's a huge part. To believe. I know, okay, well, there are people that don't believe in Allah, but if you are a Muslim or you do believe in God, then you do have an advantage there.
A big advantage. And again, there are, again, from a religious perspective, like the books that I've read or the speakers that, in terms of that deal with this issue, most of them come from like a faith-based perspective. So whether that's Michelle Weiner Davis's book, I'm going to get, so Healing from Infidelity. It's a really brilliant book. It comes from a Christian perspective, but again, and she gives practical tips as well. Esther Perel's book, and I think it's Rethinking Infidelity or something along those lines. No, The State of Affairs. But what with both of those authors' book and other writers is that they do speak about, obviously at the moment when someone finds out, it's always like devastation. It's like the worst thing. I can't overcome this. But 8 times out of 10 that the women do overcome it, they find a strength that they didn't see coming, or they didn't recognize that they need to have. And generally, from obviously religious perspective, that comes from above. So I do believe that again, and coming back to the point I mentioned earlier about being around marriage-minded friends, and then also being around people that can help you from a like faith or religious perspective. Again, and not to say that this is something that you deserve. It's just something that you've been maybe tested with, whether in a good way or bad way, but not just to try and internalize it. But if again it's the partner that's repeat offender, shall we say, I would like to split it into two. If it's porn, because I would say porn is maybe a bit easier, so to speak, to deal with than if he's actually having
Yeah, yeah,
intercourse with different, because obviously there could be venereal diseases. There's a lot of other stuff that you have to
yeah,
deal with in terms of, you know, if he's out sleeping with different women and he's
yeah,
coming back to you. That's if it's like porn, that is clearly his problem that he's bringing into your marriage that he needs to get sorted out with. If it's a case of obviously him having extramarital affairs, that's a bigger problem because, like I said, it's a lot of health risk and things like that. So if he's not only reckless with his desires and his behavior, you don't want him to be coming back to your home with that. So that's something obviously a woman has to be a bit more cautious in the sense of, oh, that's not just like his problem, deal with it, and then come back to me, no, because I don't know what you're bringing into the home. Do you understand what I'm getting at? So that's why I wouldn't conflate the two. And even when we're talking about cheating, or if it's like sexting or or emotional affairs, but he's not actually physically intimate. That's again a different problem, and there'll be different, maybe you could say, strategies to deal with that, as opposed to again extramarital affairs, because I think they're very different in terms of the consequences what it can bring to the woman at hand. So that's why I just think it's important that people understand that, because and even like if you were to just say, oh, my husband was cheating on me, and she might mean he was watching porn, the person might be giving advice as if like he's having an extramarital affair. Do you understand what I mean?
yeah,
Or he was flirting with someone. And again, so that's why I think it's first understand what the problem is, and then from then, obviously, if you want to try and resolve that, there are different effective strategies, not only for him but also for you as well. So there are also support groups, whether it's counselling or whether it's the SAA. Like they have support group meetings for women. There is a really good book for partners of sex addicts by Paula Hall. She's a UK-based researcher specialist on sex and porn addiction, and she's written a brilliant book, not only understanding sex addiction, but she's also and porn addiction, but she's also gives like really good and practical advice for spouses, mainly like women with a partner that's addicted to like sex or porn, and she's got like a recovery model called Trace, which is like again a self-help model. So there is definitely a lot of help about. It's very common, unfortunately, but at the same time there is a lot of solutions, and there are many people that have overcome these challenges.
yeah. And I think just hearing stories of people who have overcome it rather than just walked away from it is powerful. But like you say, not many people that want to talk about it, and understandably so, because no one wants to air out their dirty laundry. Nobody wants to put their relationship out there, which is understandable. But knowing that there are people, just having that at the back of your mind, knowing that there are people out there who have overcome these and are still in happy marriages,
Many
who have
people.
built that trust back, it's so
Like there are a lot of people, like a lot of people. But again, I can understand, like you mentioned earlier about not wishing to air out their dirty laundry, which I wouldn't advocate. But there are reasons why you don't really know about these stories. But there are a lot of people who are dealing with some form of infidelity, both from the man and the woman. But generally, again, in the context of where the man's been unfaithful, there are many examples of where that's happened. But then they've still, and I would tell anyone listen, if you were to speak to people in your communities, elderly people, just like over 45, 50, you hear many stories. That people that now that you see so happily in love and blah, they've dealt with things, and because again, if we're speaking about like a marriage, and obviously 10 years, 20 years, 30 years deep, there's going to be a lot of issues that people will go through, and again, it's not always going to be plain sailing. So I just think we need to get out of this fictitious, romanticize.
yeah,
Like it's just going to be. I think that's more harmful than probably because that's what's destroying so many people, because you've got this image that he was a perfect person, especially in religious circles. I hear people, or I see messages sometimes from women, and they're like, "Oh, but my husband has got this issue with porn. I can't believe it, and he's Muslim." So okay, what does that mean? or
Yeah,
he's got a beard, or he goes to the mosque and that's like, what is that? Are
like
you?
what?
He's not asexual. He's not asexual, you know. And
Yeah,
I think that's one of the problems as well. It's that yes, we have these ideals that we subscribe to live by. We have to also remember that the best of people, outside obviously the prophets, because they're infallible, had issues in terms of infidelity
100%. It's just
during the time
funny
of
you
the
say
Prophet.
that. It's really funny you say that. I was speaking to somebody and I was telling them that, oh, I work with Muslim men and women who are trying to overcome their porn addictions, and the person was like, "What? Muslims
Just
watch porn?" They were
yeah,
like,
it's just
"But how does that even make sense?" And I was just like, "Oh my goodness!" It's like this whole idea that Muslim sex addiction, porn addiction, it doesn't make sense. How make it make sense? But it's not. It's a real problem. Being Muslim doesn't mean that you're not struggling with these things, and having that understanding that, okay, my husband's a God-fearing person, then he prays 5 times a day, why is he cheating on me? Is that
it's
confusion
just
that women have? Does he really fear Allah? Does he really
I
love
get,
Allah?
and I would say unfortunately, many of our imams, speakers do not help in this regard because it's always this idealized image, like a Muslim can't, and it's like, okay, if you read the Quran, if you're reading about the lifetime of the Prophet or some of the companions, the verses that were speaking about a man went and saw one of Hilal bin Ubayya saw his wife having sex with someone else, and those verses revealed about that. That's speaking about Muslims. Verses speaking about what to do when if a chaste woman is accused of. Like, these are all real
Yeah,
stories
these are stuff
of
about
believing people struggling with their desires.
exactly.
So it's like this idea, like, and I think again, unfortunately, I think because many of us have adopted Victorian Christian understanding about sex and relations, that once you're married, you don't have desires for anyone
You don't
else, or
have
you
to.
don't
Yes,
struggle.
I think that's something that a lot of women
Yeah,
struggle with.
yeah,
Accepting the fact that your husband can have desire and
mhm,
be attracted to another woman that's not you.
yeah, yeah,
And even if they understand, okay, yeah, but that's not my husband. He
yeah,
loves me, so he can't possibly be
yeah,
attracted to another
yeah,
woman. I'm sorry,
mhm,
sis, but the truth is he can be, and he
yeah,
probably will be attracted to. If he's attracted to you, there's a high chance that he will be
yeah,
99% a chance that he'll be attracted to other women.
yeah. And someone said this, and it's and again, just going like someone I was listening to a podcast, and the person he mentioned that because I was talking about this topic, and then they said people that say that, like, how can you love someone and then kind of like betray their trust somewhat? Then isn't it similar to someone you love Allah but you're also sinning? It doesn't mean you don't love him. It's like someone saying because you sin that means you don't love Allah.
Yeah, that's a really good way to. I love the way you've.
I, I don't like for me. I maybe because I could have understood from like you're a human being, and well, this is from the Quran. If you read the Quran, it's you're seeing stories, and I think what's happened is that because a lot of the stories we hear, they're of stories of maybe just like scholars or like pious people that you don't hear any kind of scandal. You're just thinking a Muslim is a perfect, idyllic, angel-like person. Whereas if you're reading the Quranic stories, you're reading the stories of the people in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, you're hearing stories of infidelity, you're reading about infidelity, you're reading stories about where there's a loss of desire, you're reading stories about discrepancy in desire, you're reading stories about a woman that doesn't desire a husband unable to satisfy his wife, a wife saying that her husband's got a small penis and he can't satisfy her, and going to the Prophet ﷺ and wanting a divorce. You're hearing all of these stories that many Muslims are, oh my God, and it's just like, grow up. And it's irritating, but then I realized actually take a step back, Happy, because maybe many people aren't aware of those stories. And
We
then when
can
I look
talk
at
about these things, but there will be people that be like, "Oh, cover your ears. We
yeah,
can't
because
talk
they
about
haven't
these
no
things. We're
because
Muslim."
it's because we've infantilized the Muslim adults. I'm not speaking about children. My work age of and I mainly deal with people
Mm.
adults. So are you still there? Is it cut off? Is that me or is it? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry.
Have I lost you there?
I can hear you.
Oh, good. Sorry. It paused for a little
No,
bit.
I'm here.
Um, oh, good, good. Sorry, because it paused and it was doing that circle. So I was thinking, am I just talking by myself like Billy No Mates? Okay, great. So I was just saying that if you're reading about these stories, even your mind, the way you view and understand love and relationship, it will change. It will transform your understanding. But if you've got this very utopian ideal, when you're hearing these real stories, it will shock you to the core. Do you understand? But that's
Yeah.
a problem that if you understand it, like if you're humanizing Muslims, humanizing religious people, knowing that they're going through these different struggles and things like that, then what you're going to do, you're creating a space for these people that have got these issues that they can find help. And again, not to throw the women in the wilderness and feel like, oh, because her husband maybe had a porn addiction or sex addiction, something's wrong with her. No, nothing's wrong with her. Something's wrong with him.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah. Sorry, I'll let you.
Yeah, no, and it's crazy you said that, because I've actually heard of a lot of cases of religious people who have found out that their religious husband has been cheating. And then it's like, I never want to be with a religious man ever again because this is what the religious people are doing. I'm just like,
Okay,
right.
can I touch on that? Yeah, so
Yeah.
I've heard that. I was actually speaking about this. The problem is, I have to phrase this delicately.
It was never about the religious thing in the first place. That's what
No,
I'm
okay.
saying.
There's a difference between education and ethics,
Yeah.
or there's a difference between education and character. Because someone is well versed in the Quran or the religion, or they've got a beard down to their belly button and they're wearing a thobe that's going up to their kneecaps, right? And they've got the religious knowledge, it doesn't mean that they've got good character. You don't know what someone's character is like until you've spent some time with that person. And this is again when we know the famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when he advised men that if a man asks for your daughter's hand in marriage and you're happy with his deen and his khuluq, his character, it's not just how much Quran he's memorized, the length of
Yeah.
his beard, the fact that he says "Ya'ni mashallah" every time when he's speaking. No, it's his character. Then you marry him off because character is important. But unfortunately, as Muslims or religious people, when we just hear someone or they speak well, we just assume that because they're well read, they're educated, they're religious, they are good, they've got good character, and that's not necessarily the case. And even from an Islamic perspective, in terms of who is religious, as in who's really got piety, we don't know. We leave that to Allah. You only judge them by the outward, but ultimately, you can't say anyone is a religious person because that's obviously a matter that's in the heart. So again, I just find that people who are shocked when they say things like that oh, my religious person husband did X, Y, and Z, therefore I'm not going to. It's just like, okay, I find that quite troubling because there's people outside of the religious realm who are doing just as much bad things as well. So you then going to paint them with the same brush? No, you won't. So why are you doing it? But it is disappointing. Don't get me wrong. So it
It is disappointing.
it
However,
is
I don't think
disappointing.
it was about religion in the first place.
Right. Yes. And again, what happened is that, and this is another side of the story that many people probably aren't aware of. When you are, and I experienced this a little bit. That's why I stepped back personally from like the whole religious spaces. When you so I went to, like, when you go to like religious like masjids and institutes and you're speaking about religion, what happens to some people is they start to put you, like the halo effect, they start to put you on a pedestal. And then even some women will be soliciting and sending you messages, inappropriate messages, to do all sorts. That's a different fitna that um if you've not had that experience, you might be overwhelmed by it. So there might be some, God-fearing, religious, righteous people, whatever, they now become like kind of like YouTube or Instagram celebrities, whatever, and then they'll be getting just as much DMs as some of your favorite musicians.
I'd
You'll be
hate to know what
surprised.
DMs you get, Habib.
No, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. So, and again, but if you've kind of like you say wrapped up in cotton wool, where you haven't been exposed to the realities of the way some men can behave and some women can behave, you'll be like, oh, this can't. No, this is a test for him as well, and some people can succumb to that. So again, it's like, for me, if you're seeing the humanity in these figures, it won't be surprising, because you're getting someone who, like I said, who may not have been exposed to illicit relations or whatever, like boyfriend, girlfriend, then all of a sudden they're thrust in the limelight. Then again, all of these messages, some of them can't deal with it. And then they might try and use the religion, which I'm not saying is right, to justify their behavior. And then they might have secret marriages and this, that, and the other. And that's something that's wrong, because for me, if you're going to do wrong or badness, do badness, but don't use the religion to cover up what you're doing. I think that's the
not
problem.
really digging these secret marriages that are going on. Like,
No, that's a problem, because but that's where even sometimes education can be or too much knowledge can be a bad thing, because when
like
you're
justifying it, right? Like you
you
just
justify it, right, and then that's where character comes into play, because there are a number of stories I know of people who are like knowledgeable, well read, who say things like, yeah, you can, marry this guy. No, I'm not going to stay with her. You halalify your womanizing, which is obviously is wrong. But that comes down to ethics and morals.
it's just
But someone who hasn't
up,
got
man.
that, yeah, it is messed up. But I'm just saying it's a reality that the same way, like, okay, if a religious, like a sheikh from a certain country that is well respected came to you and wanted to borrow some money from you, just say like £10,000, and then it's like, praising, so I'll make a lot of dua for you and this and that, I need it to send my daughter to university, this, that, and the other. Then you've benefited a lot from his lectures, and you've got the money, you transferred it to him, but then actually someone said, no, you should write it down. You should, just to make sure it's clear that the terms of the loan. And he looked at you like, no, fair Allah, what do you mean? You write it down. That's like an insult. You don't think I'll give you the money back? Now, because of your adoration for this person, you might think, no, I can't. No, it's true. I trust him. Islamically, that's the wrong position. If you're given, and this is this is mentioned in the Quran, you're supposed to write down, because human nature, if something goes wrong, to protect yourself. So likewise, when we're dealing with male-female relationships, you have to understand, irrespective of how much knowledgeable or piety the person appears to be, he's still a human being, and she's still a human being. Not everyone behaves accordingly. So again, if you've got these idealized images of these people, then you'll be shocked. But if you're looking at it like quite objectively, and you're looking like a psychology or sociology project, then it's not going to be as surprising. It's like hearing all of these salacious stories.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, literally. I think even when women marry the man, I'm just talking about women here because I work with women, they go in and say, I've married this guy, so he has to be perfect, because I've basically handed myself over to him. My parents have handed me over to this guy. He's got to basically tick all those boxes now. So when things like this happen, it's heartbreaking, understand yourself, but it's almost like, how did that happen? And it's that denial first, I think, which is quite harmful as well, because you can't accept the fact that he's human and he has made a mistake. And it's like, how could he possibly have done this?
And then I think it's also probably important to try and understand and obviously you probably could help me understand this more. The women that are struggling, is it the fact that he's betrayed, or like the feeling that he's betrayed them, or he's not what she thought he would be, if that makes sense? He's not lived up to the expectations that is it so like she as in she might be doubting herself that I can't trust another man again, because this is someone that I've ticked all the boxes, I did all my due diligence, he was in my eye the perfect man, and then he's done this, therefore I can't trust myself, like my own judgment? Or are they more betrayed by the fact that he has hurt and betrayed her? Does that make sense?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest, because the first one being like, you've chosen a guy who you thought was perfect for you, you married him, and then he's done this, and you're like, well, what how can I trust myself getting married again? Another person could do the same thing. But I think it's a little bit of both, because you get people that are going through both. So I think understanding that you have married a human, your husband is human, yes, you respect him, yes, you love him and everything, but he is a human, is just probably the best place to start.
Because the first point about, because that can be as damaging than the second one, because okay, one, he's betrayed you, so you can kind of overcome that in the sense that okay, he's a prick, he's a scumbag, you might leave him, whatever, right? But the first one, that can have more harmful consequences going forward, because when you start to doubt yourself, and you think, I can't trust another man again because, you know, this person betrayed me. And it's like, no, you might have done all of the right thing, and he might have been that person when you met him, but over a period of time, he may have changed. And I think that's why it's also important that women recognize that as well,
They just need to
because
detach themselves from the problem.
yeah,
I think that's what it is. Women are
yeah,
making themselves the problem.
no, and that's the problem. I think that's the problem. Like, you need to, and this can sound quite crazy, but not everything is about you. The world
No,
doesn't look
it
like
is.
it's
That's literally
like
what
it's
I
not
say.
about you.
I
But
call
I think,
it bullshit. I say it's not all about you. You're making
yeah,
everything about you, and it's not about you.
yeah,
And you're not going to get better if you keep making it about you. You're
yeah,
going to wait at home for him to come back from work, where the woman at work is, you know, there,
yeah,
and
exactly.
you're trying to make yourself look like her, be like
Yeah,
her, find out, you know, make your outfit like similar to her. You're making it about you when you're not the problem, and that is
yeah,
so damaging.
yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of the problem starts.
Mm. And how do women overcome this when, especially we're living in a very individualistic society that it's all about you? You know, with maybe because like with self-love, and there is obviously some good in that, but like everything is about you and you deserve happiness, and the world is about how you feel and how you view things. In that case, and how can you then detach something which is affecting you? I think someone, if they've been absorbed with everything is about you or it's about them, then all of a sudden someone now telling them that this issue is not about you, you need to detach yourself from it. How do they actually do that?
Focus, well, first of all, understand that that's his problem. Then
Mm,
secondly, then you need to work on obviously your own healing, working on being patient firstly, knowing that this isn't going to happen overnight. Be realistic. You know, if you've found out your husband's cheating, is not going to happen. It's going to take months, years even, to fully
yeah,
get past this. Focusing on how you can get better, focusing on how you can stop checking his phone every 5 seconds,
yeah,
tracking his car, all
yeah,
that stuff. Focusing
yeah,
on the things that you can control. You can't control his
yeah,
behavior.
yeah,
But if you're controlling his behavior, trying to, you know, check his phone every 5 seconds when he leaves it there, that you need to stay away from.
mm,
That isn't helping you. And this is what I tell women.
yeah,
What you can control, make a list of the things that you can control. And it's
mm,
not him. If he messages her, you can't control that. What that's going to lead is you nagging him, saying, "Why did you do this?" You
mm,
know, and that is actually what I've seen with a lot of people, is that actually pushes them to, it's like a relapse.
mm,
It's a relapse, and I've seen it a lot with porn addicts, people who visit prostitutes, people
yeah,
who you know, are having affairs. When the wife's at home saying, "Oh, you know, you told me you wouldn't do it, and you've done it again," and then what happens is
yeah,
it pushes him towards her again, or
yeah,
porn again, and it's a
yeah,
vicious cycle. So
yeah,
first of all, you need to cut that out. I'm a very straight to get straight to it. I'm not going to
yeah,
pretend. I'm not going to bullshit you and say, "Oh, you know what, you know." I'm not wishy-washy. I'm like, let's just get
mm,
straight to it. If you're serious about building that trust, stop that, because that's not going to
yeah,
get you anywhere.
yeah. No, I think that's very well said. I think that's very well said. Yeah, I think that you brilliantly summarized that. Yeah, I'm just hoping that there's more women that's going to be maybe a bit more like what you're saying, forthright with other women. Because I think as men, you say this day and age, you get thrown eggs and tomatoes at and called all sorts of names. But I think it's
I get
important that,
told all the time that I'm toxic.
yeah, no, because no, I think it's important because it's just I just don't believe in um. But I think obviously I think a woman will more likely to accept it from another woman, that advice. And that's why, like I said in the beginning, I mainly speak to men who may be like struggling, what have you. But I agree with a lot of the sentiment that you kind of expressed, and I just think that it's important that more women kind of hear that, because I think this whole eulogizing women and just saying everything is about you and you're the this and that, that's not actually helping them. Because especially when they're dealing or they're having these issues and it's man, then it's like, oh, the men are the problem. They're all evil and men are shaitan and they're from, and I just don't think that's helping. So I just think, yeah, a lot of what you said, I think, because a lot of what you said, to be fair, it's something that I've heard from elders. So even with
Oh,
myself
okay,
and even the
old
work that I
school,
do,
Habib.
yeah, and a lot of, and this is the funny that a lot of the wisdom from the people of the past, they knew how. they had a lot of these issues, but we, I don't know, our generation, maybe the generation before us, you know, this very idolized, romanticized depiction of love and like with no problems, no issues. And if there is a sign of a problem, run away and leave. And it's all about my happiness. And it's like, but then you're running from relationship to relationship and then unhappiness, unhappiness. And then it's like, I don't need anybody. I'm just going to be by myself because no one deserves me. No one, because that way you're going to protect you. And men are suffering as well. They are with the whole red pill and stuff where all women are X, Y, and Z and they just want to be by themselves. And I'm always a bit worried when I hear men that talk ill of women and they want to be by themselves, but that's another conversation altogether. But
Let's not even
that's
get there.
yeah, I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go there. But there is. It's unhealthy dialogue that we hear a lot, and that's why I'm glad to have this conversation where we're trying to understand and solve problems between the sexes rather than just pitting us against each other and just.
Yeah. But you know what? This is why I believe that you don't need to go to therapy, couples counseling, all that bullshit. Because what are they going to say to you? They're going to tell you, talk about your problems, deal with your own stuff, man. Yeah. Learn how to communicate in a way that the other person understands. Yeah. This is why I work with women, because I don't work with a lot of women. Okay, I've got half the women that are telling me that, you know what, you don't understand my husband. I'm like, listen, it's not about understanding your husband, because me trying to understand your husband isn't going to get you anywhere. You don't even understand your husband, man. What you need to do is look at the things that you can control, which is your behavior. You can always control your behavior, but you can't control the other person's behavior. You can go to couples therapy, but look at the people who have had successful marriages. Look at your grandparents or the elders. They dealt with things very differently. They focused on their own stuff, watered their own grass. They didn't air out their dirty laundry. They weren't going to couples therapy. But why is it that we have so many more divorces now? People are just walking away.
Because there's money to be made. And that's what people don't want to. The reality is because there's money. There's more money to be made by keeping people single.
Yeah.
Because when people are together, generally they'll be, whether they've got issues or they will talk about it between the two of them and resolve it. Whereas when, like, whether it's like the dating industry or trying to get married or couples therapy or people that are by themselves and divorced, there's more money to be made by me selling to products or like relationship counseling and therapists to people by themselves. But when you come as a team, it's harder because naturally you might be buying my bullshit, but your husband won't.
Yeah, I don't work with couples, by the way. I don't.
I'm just saying. So that's why.
But that's why I don't work with couples.
And I don't blame you. And that's why even myself, and I always get this, because again, like I mentioned at the top of this live, that I mainly direct my messages to men, and I know how the way men kind of take information, and it's not always the way that necessarily would resonate with a lot of women. So there's always a bit of conflict. That why are you talking about such and such and such and such way? Sometimes a bit crude, but that's how, whether you like or not, a lot of men take that messaging. Men are not going to sit down 9 times out of 10 and hear a talk about the importance of emotional intimacy or the different love languages and this. We're not invested that way.
Thank you. But this is why when women message me, say, can me and my husband get some support and help? I'm like, no, I don't work with your man. I work with you.
Yeah.
I don't care, because your husband's going to be sitting there thinking, what the hell has she dragged me into?
Right.
I say to them, it's better if your husband doesn't know. Okay, I know honesty is the best policy, but it's not always the case.
No, I agree. Because this idea that the man, like every man, should be emotionally available. Don't get me wrong. Yes, men should be show emotion and be attentive to their wives' needs. But this idea that the modern world is trying to create men to be like their wives' girlfriends and give her that emotional support that she'll get from her female friends, that's not going to happen. Well, they're trying to create that, but that's not going to happen. And the men that
get more girlfriends then.
Yes, but this is why it's important that, like you said, so if a woman's got girlfriends, whether it's in a friendship group or her sisters, and then obviously she's got different, and then she's got her husband, she's got different relationships, and she's getting the emotional support and stuff that she's getting from her girlfriends. Whereas if she tried to get all of this from one person, that's a recipe for disaster. And that's what is being promoted. It's like all of my needs, my physical, my emotional, my spiritual needs, I need that to be met by this one individual. And this is something that was never happened up until the last 100 years.
It's literally like that. You have women. Okay, I'm saying this because I'm trying to tell women this every single day. Okay, maybe you need a better relationship with your mum, because your husband can't be your mummy. Your husband
Yeah.
can't be your daddy. Maybe you need to sort out those issues. Find more
Yeah.
friends, because your husband
Yeah.
can't fulfill every one of your emotional needs. Okay, he can fulfill a lot of stuff, you know,
Yeah.
some good stuff that only he can
Yeah.
fulfill, but he's not going to be able to fulfill everything. And this is what people really, it's hard. It's hard because women have this thing that their husband should fulfill every need.
And people, a lot of women don't like to hear this, but this is the reality that for some men, when their wife becomes like the mother, he loses attraction in her. The desire goes. So maybe he still loves her, as in maybe like the mother of his child, his wife, but in terms of that desire, it goes.
I was just
And
going
I'm
to write
not.
a post about that today.
No,
He's
that's the
sexier than his mum. Why are you trying to be his
no,
mother
no,
for?
that's the reality. And even if she's always wants to mother him and talks about him as like her child, and he can recognize and he sees that, how can then she expect or want him to be intimate with her like he's like his wife, like a lover? It's not going to happen. So
Yeah.
that's why again, this idea of having someone that's going to meet all of your needs, I don't think that's realistic. I don't think that's necessary. I think that will kill the desire, that will kill the relationship without even the woman realizing it. And a lot of people that's promoting this idea, they haven't even got the results to show for it. So whether
Yeah,
it's Hollywood, whether it's the psychologists like Freud, that's all of this, like love and desire separate, they haven't got the results to show for these theories. And that's why I always tell people that, okay, the people that are shaping your ideas about, love, relationship, desire, and what you want in the perfect person or the perfect man or husband, where are you getting this from? And then look at what, their results. And if it's something that you can see, okay, I can see where they come from, these are the results, then by all means follow it. If there's nothing to substantiate their theories, because in many cases they are just theories, why are you going to buy into their theories? Because that's all that's evidently that's all it is, a theory. It's not like something that is fact or tangible that is going to necessarily work. So
do you know what? I'm really glad that we've spoken about this, because I feel like there's someone I feel like I'm the only one saying these things. I'm starting to think I'm the crazy one.
yeah, it does happen, and that's why even myself, I intentionally do not do as many lives as some people ask me to, just because there isn't many like-minded people, and then you're just, and I'm always open to hear the conversation of people who've got maybe different views and stuff. But if I'm always hearing stuff that I don't necessarily agree with, I might then be influenced by that and start saying things that in reality that's not really what works. Do you understand what I mean? And the dominant is people selling this narrative. If I'm honest, that it's just about your husband fulfilling all of your desires, and just emotional intimacy is just the most important thing. Sex is like
selfish. Honestly, to be honest, I really think it's selfish.
What do you mean?
I think it's selfish wanting him to, selfish is a bad word to use, but
So what do you mean? What do you mean? Selfish on a yeah, if you can elaborate on that.
I think it's selfish to want him to fulfill everything.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I feel like it's like you're claiming him, like he's mine. And I think it's kind of scary when you go into a marriage and say that man is mine. He's mine, like, and he has to be there for everything. Hear everything, listen to everything, support you with everything. I think it's kind of selfish to want that.
Yeah, it is. I agree. But you know what's funny? If you were to ask a number of those women, okay, you want him to fulfill all of your desires, this emotional intimacy, like a friend, all fine. Do you understand, or do you know what he wants from you?
Probably not, and he's probably crap at communicating it too.
No, even if the man does express that, a lot of women don't want to hear what the man wants.
No,
that's the reality.
Yeah.
But even if he says a few things, oh, but don't you know I've got this to do? And it's just like, okay, it is selfish, because it's like, it's all well and good for him to give you the world, but if you don't just want to give him, I don't know, half of that, because you've got so much going on, how is that fair if we're talking about a relationship where it's give and take? So there is a lot of this idea, it's me, me, me. He has to do everything for me, but then are you trying to understand what he wants? So if he wants his wife, his beautiful, loving wife, the woman that he fell in love with, not to be his mother, so he wants to create a distance, so he's got friends with, he wants to chill out with his mates, he doesn't want to see you as his best friend, he doesn't want to go to all of the games, but that's what he wants, and that keeps the marriage and the spice alive. But you're not interested in that because you want him to be your world, and he's going to say, yeah, okay, I'll be your world, but then I'll be like your brother or your roommate, and then the sex life is gone, and then you're complaining, and then
and I feel like that's another thing that women are doing, which this is what I teach women. I teach women that you have to be his wife, not his mum, because a lot of women are becoming like the mother of their children and their husband. Even more so when they have children, because now you have responsibilities, you want to, you want things a certain way, you want him to be a certain way. You're not his mum. Like Allah has blessed him with a mother, and he's also blessed him with a wife. Act like the wife. Otherwise, there's not gonna be that desire there.
Yeah, I think well, women can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's harder to be a wife than it is to be a mother. And the reason why I say that, well, it's harder to be a husband than it is to be a father, especially. But I was in the context of I would say it's harder to be a wife than a mother, and that's why a lot of women maybe talk more about being a mother, as in the love that a mother generally has for a child is unconditional, and it's always so like it's effort and it's difficult, but that love is there, that bond is there.
Yeah.
Whereas as a wife, it's harder because there's going to be times where you can't stand him or he's irritating you, and to keep that relationship is much harder to maintain and to foster than it is with your child, because that love is always going to be there irrespective of how that child kind of treats you. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
And because of that, there's like it's very rare. I mean, you're one of few exceptions that women who are wives and mothers will talk about both roles, or even speak about being a loving or sexy wife to their husband, or the importance of that. And it's like when a woman becomes a mother, it's like, okay, forget the sexy wife, forget that I'm just about a mother. Motherhood completes me. And it's like, okay, what about you're also got other identity? And so forget about that. And like you said, she can become like the mother to the husband. And a lot of men complain about this, but they don't like to vocalize it. Now, I'm not saying, sorry, go on.
They're scared.
Who's scared?
The men.
Yeah, a lot of men are. Yeah, a lot of men. Because and the funny thing is that, again, I'm not justifying men's bad behavior, but I'm saying when men are doing some of these things, or like stepping out, again, I'm speaking like in the context, we say like of porn or whatever, because they want this like thrill or whatever, if they feel that it's lacking at home, it's very difficult to tell that to your wife. If she's become like the wife has become like the mother, and she's desexualized, it's one of the hardest conversations to have, because this is a woman that you love, that's given birth to your children. You don't want to hurt her, but she's now become mummy figure rather than being an erotic sexual being that you desire. You can't see that in her anymore. And if you mention it,
I say to people that motherhood is hard, but being a wife, people say marriage is hard. I don't say no, motherhood is hard. Hard work is hard work, but marriage doesn't need to be hard. We've made it hard.
Yes.
Okay, the reason wives have made it hard because they're trying to step into this mother role and trying to control and do play that mummy role even with their husband. You don't need to play that role.
Yeah.
Here's the husband. Let him be the man. Let him look after you. Let him do his job. If you're just a wife, you're not gonna say marriage is hard. It's only when you try to be a mom that's when marriage becomes hard. If you allow yourself to be a wife who's still desirous, still playing the wifey duty, then marriage isn't hard. It's only the other things that are hard, motherhood and all that stuff. Marriage doesn't need to be hard, and I feel like people in this day and age are making it harder for themselves. That's my honest opinion.
And it's interesting that like the adjectives and when people talk about marriage, it's hard, it's difficult, it's the struggle. But when people speak about boyfriend girlfriend relationships, it's fun, it's exciting, it's dating, for example, it's fun. So even people going into it, it's like marriage just becomes boring. And the only joy that people feel, without people realize, they'd be socially conditioned to believe that the only joy generally going to be having in marriage is being the mother or the father for your kids. And you see that in terms of how people present themselves, is that they'll put more emphasis and onus on them being the mother of someone or the father of someone, them being the husband or wife. And some of it I can understand because you want to protect that relationship, which is I
Yeah.
agree. But then also then it's like, okay, then where do you, even in your own private life, create that space where you create that excitement and that fun and enjoyment with your spouse? Because even when I ask both men and women, when they're always, complaining about their partner, and I always ask them like, if you was going to describe your partner to someone and what they do good, their good attributes or good qualities, can you?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, both men and women be struggling. Unless they're speaking about, she's a good mother,
She's a good
he's a
mom.
good father.
He's a good
It's
dad.
like, no, what about the relationship between the two of you as lovers, as sensual beings? Forget about your co-parenting. I'm saying as the two of you, can you think
Yeah.
about the good attributes that he does for you or she does for, and when people struggle with that to name, the good attributes that they have or good qualities that they do for them, that's a recipe. That's when you're in trouble about them realizing it.
Yeah.
Because but then when I say what is it that they don't do or what they can improve on, the list is like
Mm. And that's the thing. When women come to me, they always start like this. Naeema, my husband, he's a really good dad and everything, but we have this problem.
that's
I'm
what I'm
like,
saying. That's what I'm
I'm,
saying.
I'm not helping you with your parenting here. So I get that
Yeah,
he's a good dad. I'm not saying that he's not a good dad.
yeah,
But being a
yeah,
good dad and being a good husband or being a good mum and being a good wife are two separate things. Without
exactly.
doubt, if you're a mother, you're going to be a good mother. Okay.
Yeah,
But that doesn't mean you're going to be a good wife.
yeah, and that's hard to hear, but I think that's something which even again, and you'll notice with a lot of the lectures and the talks when people speak about marriage, they just speak about marriage in the context of having children and building a family. Whereas in the past, when a lot of even like the early scholars and even the story, when they speak about marriage, it's largely in the context of the man and the woman as lovers. It's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
it's not children. It's not, you get, and again, a lot of that is from a Christian or Catholic concept of marriage. Is the purpose of marriage, the purpose of sexual relations is to have children, it's procreation.
It's not. It's not.
Yeah. But that, again, I'm just saying we're still being
We're
affected
still
by that.
in.
So that's
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of baggage, and I think we've kind of veered off the subject somewhat because I thought we were speaking about.
Oh
But I
yeah.
think no, I think no, I think it is still important. I think it still actually comes to what we're talking about building trust because, yeah, redefining our understanding of what is not only love, desire, lust, but also marriage as well, and it's not just co-parents kind of thing. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Um,
I actually asked my husband that yesterday because I was actually thinking about this, and I said to him, "What's?" I was testing him actually
I
because I don't believe that marriage should be hard. That's my opinion. Okay,
agree.
you can have a different opinion. That's up to you.
No, I
Whatever. I'm
agree.
not going to attack your opinion for it. I believe marriage isn't hard. I said to my husband, "What's the hardest thing about marriage?" And I was listening to his answer, and he goes, "Oh, the kids."
Mm.
And
Do
I
they
was
get
like,
in the way or what?
and he goes, "Yeah, the children are the hardest part about marriage." And I was like, "That's not marriage, though, is it? That's our parenting."
Yeah,
Yeah. So then I was
right.
like, and then I said to him, "So what's the hardest part about marriage?" And he goes, "Well, nothing. Nothing's hard about marriage. It's just the things that come with it, like children." I was like, "Okay, that's great. That gives
Mm,
me ease
mm,
because
yeah.
I was really glad that we could have that differentiation there. That okay, marriage is one thing between me and you. We have one thing, and then we also have children, which is like a byproduct of what we have together. But yeah, I think
Do you know something else which is quite sad or actually important that if someone is going through like a infidelity, what I would advise just to think about, do you like your spouse?
mm,
And the reason why I say that is that when someone reflects again, looking at the marriage, do you like your spouse? Because obviously a lot of people within a year or two after getting married, children comes into the picture. So naturally there's that affection between the two as co-parents, right? But take away the kids, do you like spending time with your spouse? Not have you done this? We need to do this. Not because you like live in the same flat or same house. You need to do certain things, but spending time. Do you actually enjoy it? Like what you was talking about, marriage not being hard, or it shouldn't be hard, or you shouldn't ascribe it to being difficult. When you think of marriage, do you not think, like what comes to mind? Is it like enjoyment? Is it pleasure? Is it fun? If these type of things don't come to your mind when you're thinking about marriage, then question yourself, why is that?
yeah, and on that, right? If it is that you're when you think about marriage, you think of oh, it's hard, responsibilities. You can change that.
That's my point. Yeah, that's my point, because if you were to talk about ask someone about their friends, I'm sure they won't just talk, oh, we have a good time, they're this. They're not just going to talk about their bad friends. You've got friends that, you have a lot of enjoyment and fun with, and there's friends that are
Kind of
difficult
draining.
and draining. But if you want to relieve some stress, or you want to enjoy it, you talk about, or you think about those friends. And when you think about friendship, you think about the good attributes. You don't talk about the friend that betrayed you. Do you understand? But if
Yeah.
when you always think about marriage, you just think about the negative stuff, then it's like, okay, then even your way or your view of marriage, or even your view of, if you're not married and you're looking to get married, your view of men, if it's always on men don't do this or men do that, it's like, then maybe that needs to change. And I don't think, the culture we're living in now, where it's very anti-men on the women's part, and with men it's anti-women on the men's part, that's kind of helping.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Oof, I'm glad that we've had this conversation, I feel like it was needed. It's just
Again,
nice to
thank you
know
for
that
that.
there's people out there who have. I was actually crazy. I started to, when you're just living in this world of everyone just saying that, oh, you know what, men are like this, and you get the DMs saying that, oh, you're so toxic for saying these things.
So
Women
what
don't
people
need
accusing you of being toxic?
women don't need to change. You should be telling men that they need to change their ways. I'm just like, okay, but where's that gonna get us? Where's that gonna get me? Me
Yeah,
telling your husband what he needs to do isn't gonna get me anywhere.
yeah.
But what I can do is I can show you another way. I can show you a different way of thinking about this. I can teach you the skills so that you can be his wife again and not just a mother to his children.
So is that one of the biggest challenges that you're finding with your female clients, that they want men to change?
They come to me. So it's funny. This is funny.
Yeah.
They come to me and say, "I want my husband to do X, Y, Z," and then I say, "Okay, sure. Let's come to me."
Wow.
And I say
Wow.
to them, "Let's do X, Y, Z.
Right.
Let me show you how to do X, Y, Z." And then you know what happens naturally?
Mm,
Things start falling into place. She's getting attention. She's getting affection because she's
mm,
no longer acting like his mommy.
mm.
Yeah. Sometimes you can tell your husband all day long, "I want you to do this for me. I want you to do this, do that." Nothing's gonna happen. You're just having a verbal brain dump. Nothing's changing. You're not communicating. That's not
Right.
effective communication. When you
Yeah.
change things and you play to your actual strengths as a woman, you're gonna get what you want. People
Mm.
think I'm against women. I'm not. I want women to get everything they want. But get it in
Yeah.
a smart way. Stop
Yeah.
taking the hard route, because it's not going to result into anything. Why do you have so many women that are unfulfilled and unhappy in their marriages? Because they're not acting like the wife.
Mm.
That's
And how do you, without going into too much details, because I'm sure that's in your programs and stuff, but how do you go through that process of a woman initially, obviously, like you mentioned, saying that she wants X, Y, and Z from her husband, and then like, how do you get to that stage where she gets that? But
yeah, I'll tell you. I
what's the
don't mind.
process?
If it was up to me, I wish I would literally tell you all the secrets that I tell my clients. The only thing is, you wouldn't do it. Because it'll be too
Mm.
hard for you to do these things, because you've been so brainwashed into believing that a woman needs to be like this and not like the easy way. They're taking the harder way. They're taking the harder approach to marriage. I literally give them the easiest thing possible, and I just tell them that let him be a man. Allow him to look after you.
Yeah.
You don't need to look after you. He needs to look after you. Allow him to do that. Communicate effectively. All you need to tell him is what you need, not what he needs to do.
Yeah.
Whether
That's
or
it.
not honestly, it's simple. I wish there's stages to it. There are stages to it. Obviously, I'd be here all day, but it's honestly so effective, because there's going to be marriage counselors and therapists out there, and even marriage coaches out there that will be like, you and your husband need to sit down and do this together. He ain't going to listen. He ain't going to do jack. He's just gonna be thinking, what is my wife on this time? He's gonna be stressed out. He's gonna be under the spotlight, and he's gonna believe that he'll never be able to fulfill you. So he's gonna be stuck there on the sofa scrolling on his phone, not giving you attention. It's gonna be forced.
Mm. So when women hear like these messages from you, what are they taken aback, or like are they receptive to it? What's generally the
Well,
response?
they have committed to working with me, so they're like, I might as well make this work. Guess what?
Okay.
After week 1 and week 2, they're like, whoa, this shit works, man. I wish I knew this earlier.
Yeah.
That's what they say. Honestly, I've not yet worked with a woman that has said, you know what, I can't. They say this is going to be hard, yeah, without doubt, but then they realize that it's not hard, it's actually easier. What I'm giving you to do is easier than what you've been doing all this time, because you are draining your own battery. Now what I'm telling you to do is so much more easier, and you're getting results. When they see results, when their husband is saying, like, I had a client that said to me today that my husband mentioned that my heart was racing around me. That's not happened before. And I was like, see, you're not his mum anymore. His heart is going to be racing around his mummy. So this is what I'm teaching my clients, the women that I work with, and I'm so passionate about it because I just feel like the world we live in they've taught it all wrong. That's it, man. It's simple stuff, but it's effective.
No, that's and I kind of knew that, but I wanted to, again, for the benefit of people listening, to hear kind of the transformational process that you go through with the female clients and helping women. And then the last question I would say is, do you also help or teach women who may be looking to get married, who've got this maybe, so like we're struggling, but they want to understand how can they, when they do eventually get married,
the trouble I'm getting with that is that a lot of women, I tell them that this is what you do, and they're like, yeah, I'll do that anyway. Of course I'm going to do that. So the women that are actually, they become the mums, they've been in marriage for quite a few years, that's when they're like, oh my God, there's a problem here. Because, do you see what I mean? Because before you're married, you can have this idea of, I'm going to be this sexy wife 24/7. Without doubt, that's going to be me. And then you get married and then you're like, oh my God, he's so irritating. He's like this. He can't look after me. He doesn't know anything about the finances. He's so irresponsible. And that's when you start being his mum. When you start living with him and start picking out all those faults, you start becoming his mum. So I'm not going to get out all my secrets here, but
no, I just wanted you to give an overview, which you've done. Thank you. So
but let me tell you something. It works. I help women feel more connected, not by telling them to connect with you. I'm not about forcing your husband saying, connect with me, let's have a heart to heart. It needs to come naturally. And it's very easy. You step into your role as a woman and you will get that. He wants to give you that. And this is what I'm telling women. He wants to give you. He's not going to marry a woman who he doesn't want to, bond with, have a connection with. This is what people don't understand. My husband doesn't want to spend time. He does want to spend time with you. He wants to spend time with you. And when you start acting like who you were before, then he'll want to spend time with you. But so when people say, oh, but he doesn't care about me. He doesn't want to, he's always on his phone. He's always like, he just runs away. He never wants to spend time. Why would you want to spend time with you? Think about it like that. If you were like a helicopter all the time saying, oh, you're not doing this right, would you even want to spend time with you? Ask yourself that first, and then we'll talk. So it works because these women want to transform their marriages. When you want to transform your marriage and you know what's possible for you, then you will take that on. And when you realize that in week 1 that is working, you're going to carry on coming back for more. I work with my clients for 8 weeks.
8 weeks, right? That was going to be my next question.
It's a transformational program because I tell them, you don't need to tell your husband anything about this. You don't need to tell him what you're doing. And then they're like, oh, but what if he finds out because there's so many changes? He won't care. He'll just be too happy that he's finally got someone to lay down next to and actually connect with. You're not going to try telling your husband, oh, we need to emotionally connect. He'll be like, what the hell are you on about? What's going on?
I get those.
People hear about emotional intimacy and they go to their partner like, we need to be more emotionally intimate, and their husbands are like, okay.
I get those requests a lot, and it's just a thing where I always, and I get it from female educators as well, and like, oh, can we do like a course on emotional intimacy like for men? And I always tell them,
sign up.
I said, like, the reality is that if we do that, it's going to be like 95% women, and the few men that will attend are those that are only attending because their wife told them to attend. But if you want, because again, the language, it's not that men are emotionally literate or where we haven't got a heart. It's just that we communicate very differently. And I just think it's important to understand and respect those differences, and like you said earlier, like let men be men and let women be women. And then we can, because there's a natural attraction there anyway. But when this idea of trying to create a man to be like this new man, which is basically a woman with a beard, men are not going to fall for that. And women, even if they do get that, then they're going to lose respect for that man, as far as I'm concerned. So,
Exactly. Do you know what? A lot of these women are like. I said she will say to me, "My husband doesn't get turned on by me." I'm like, "Do you even get turned on by your husband?" Because if you're trying to be his mom, there's a very high chance that you're not getting turned on by him either.
exactly. Yeah. No, that's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point.
But the thing is, I can say these things all day, and a lot of women are just men as well. They're just like, what?
Yeah, what I say is, even with the work I've been doing for a few years, but I would say that it can become draining and exhausting because obviously, you're saying this kind of same things, but what I've to take a step back, and that's why I don't do it. Obviously, I've got like a full-time job and a life outside, and it helps me to do it as long as I've been doing it because I have to remind myself that not a lot of this information is new to people. So even for yourself, just say you found out this 5 years, 10 years ago, whatever, it took even a while for it to resonate, for it to digest. So there needs to be a bit of patience with delivering the message, but being consistent as well, and knowing that some people that will hear it or listen to it and they'll be like, "Oh, this woman's mad, or this guy's crazy. I don't believe it." But then they'll come back to it maybe later. So that's just something that I've just realized that okay, there has to be a level of like compassion and mercy in the sense that not everyone necessarily will resonate now. And those who need it will resonate with it, and those who don't need it, it's fine. It's not going to be for everyone. So, the detractors or people that are saying, you're toxic or whatever, I just let those messages or those comments fall by the wayside. I just don't pay no attention to them. But just, keep doing what you're doing, and I'm sure you're going to be not only saving a lot of marriages, but helping not only women but men feel fulfilled in their relationships. So
yeah, I'm just like, I'm helping. This is something that I'm going to continue doing regardless, because I know that what I'm trying to teach women is the correct way. Okay, and I know people are like, how do you know? But I'm just like, if people are going to marriage counseling and therapy, is it even working for you? Is it working? Tell me, where's the proof that it's working? If that was the case, there's more people going to marriage counseling and therapy, but there are more divorces. Tell me where it's working. So yeah, that's it. I'm going to carry on with this because not only the women that I work with will benefit, their husbands will benefit from it too. And I think that's the thing that a lot of women come on for. They say, you know what, I want my husband to be happy, because women naturally want good for their husbands. I want him to be happy, and bless their souls. Like, honestly, they come on and like, I want to do this. My husband, I want him to be happy with me. I want him to be attracted to me again. And it's nice, but then they realize that actually this was all about me in the first place. I'm winning. It's a win-win. We're all winning here. So that's about it, really. I could bang on about this all day, but I'm going to leave it there because otherwise, we've just completely gone off topic. But
thank you again for inviting me, and really enjoyed it. And hopefully, are you going to save this?
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, I'll share it on my platform for people to listen to. Yeah, it's been really engaging and beneficial, not only for me, but hopefully for people listening. So, like I just said, kudos to you and your work, and just keep doing what you're doing.
And you too. And I'm excited to read this. I'm really, really excited. Inshallah. And honestly, keep up the good work. I love everything that you're doing, and it's amazing. And you're just great. You're great. Honestly, keep at it, inshallah. And I'm really glad that we had this conversation. I feel really human after this, actually. So, all the best, and I hope you have a great evening, inshallah.
Same to you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.